Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Real Estate America's Newsroom. It is the beautiful month of May, and it's the 10th day in the year of our Lord, 2022. We have a jam-packed show here, as always. We're going to be running through a lot of really awesome information, so stick around, folks. Inflation in the housing market. I know we've talked about this before, but is the housing market actually increasing inflation? We're going to go ahead and find out. Thousands and thousands, to the tune of over 100,000 homeowners, are getting insurance non-renewal letters saying, comply or you're out. So picture this: live in your home for 2 decades, a letter comes in from your insurance company, and you're dropped. Unless you go ahead and fork up tens and tens of thousands of dollars for a new roof, maybe some storm shutters, things like that. We're going to talk about it. Buying a house in 2022 with Holderness family vlogs. Most of you don't know, but the Holderness family vlog is one of my favorite places to view some things that are lighthearted on YouTube. And they've got a really awesome skit pertaining to what it feels like to go ahead and buy a home in 2022. Getting involved with local leaders regarding property taxes, ladies and gentlemen. Home prices are coming up, so are your taxes. What can you do about it? We're going to figure it out here today on Real Estate America's Newsroom. And how the political climate affects the real estate market. So we'll get into it with all of the folks and roundtable this at the very end. But before I get moving forward, as always, he is esteemed, he is beautiful, and he is my co-host, Mr. Nick Sakkis. How are you today, sir?
Illustrious co-host.
Yeah. He's illustrious.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff today. But before we get started, I want to ask the people something, because behind the scenes, there was a little bit of a rift between me and old Jake about our introduction. So let us know in the comments. Do you love our 30-second introduction, or would you like for us to just get started right into the show with no introduction? Put in the comments and let us know.
Jeez. Be nice to me. Be nice to me, folks.
Leave it open to the people. We got to leave it open to the people.
To me. I work hard to go ahead and pre-brief everybody. It's a briefing, Nicholas. It's a briefing. So
love it.
Hey,
love it.
Nick, why should people go ahead and follow us here at Real Estate America's Newsroom?
Man, we are on top of what's going on. We want to be the pulse and serve all markets in real estate. So right now we have several markets we're representing with all of our awesome guests in the show. But if you'd like to be on, if you have something to say in your market, if you want to share some news, this is going to be a community, and we want to be the pulse for real estate of what's going on the ground floor. And we'd love to have you on. So head over to reunation.com and put in your info and come on, join the crew.
We are streaming live on the REU Nation network. I can just see it broadcasting all over the place, coming right into your smart devices. Fantastic. Nick, inflation in the housing market.
It's a real problem. It's a real problem.
I've got a news clip here from an analyst that's talking about how he thinks that the actual appreciation in the housing market is actually pulling up inflation. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. We'll bring in some other folks and see what they have to say about it. What do you say?
Yep.
Here we go.
Inflation continues to create major challenges, we know, for many families buying day-to-day goods. But did you know it's even worse for those looking to buy a home? Our Ken Molestina spoke to a real estate research expert who explains how he believes all of this is intertwined. All new at 5 o'clock.
So here's the reality that all of us and even researchers can agree on.
Inflation just makes everything harder on everybody.
Dr. Adam Perdue is a research economist with the Texas Real Estate Research Center at Texas A&M. He reminds us that inflation, by definition, is the increase in average prices for goods and services. In the case of real estate, he says, it's the spiking prices of homes that's causing other things to go up too.
And actually, what we've seen is that price appreciation in housing has been pulling inflation up. We're seeing a faster price appreciation in housing than we are in a lot of other goods and services, and that's actually pulling the measured inflation higher.
And in addition to that,
but we're countered with just how short on existing home supplies, which is actually the market that you hear about the most, but also on the new home construction. Basically, they've been trying to build more, but all of these supply constraints and the increased prices for the materials that go into the new home have made it so that they haven't been able to deliver any more new homes.
Recently, the Federal Reserve made a move to increase overall interest rates by 0.5 point, the largest spike in about 2 decades, and it's meant to cool spending and bring down inflation.
So right now, mortgage rates are sitting at about 5.1, 5.5. somewhere in that range. And we are expecting, with the increasing rates from the Federal Reserve, we're expecting the mortgage rates to continue to increase also.
Experts expect that'll alleviate the demand for spending and home buying, in part bringing down inflation and creating more home supply for the unprecedented demand.
What we're expecting here at the center is just the price appreciation is going to slow until income can kind of catch up, and then people will be able to start buying again.
I'm Ken Molestina, CBS 11 News.
And mortgage lenders explain the interest rate increase will be forcing home buyers, they think, to have more money, more cash to closing. That could ultimately disqualify some borrowers if they obviously cannot afford the new terms.
All right, gentlemen. So interesting kind of a thought, right? So Mr. Mark Buehler, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that don't know, is one of the top appraisers in the whole state of California. Mark, you're involved in this on a daily basis. What are your thoughts? Is this measured inflation kind of copacetic and consistent with the appreciation in these home prices?
I think that's an interesting take on it, and it's sort of a chicken egg, conundrum here. The prices, the inflation is defined as an increase in the price of goods and services, but the reason why we have this increase in the real estate market is a lack of supply. The demand is significant, and the supply just hasn't changed. So when we went into the pandemic, real estate shut down. We weren't able to tour homes, but the demand didn't stop. So I think it's a very interesting take, because the cost of goods and materials are rising that go into building these new homes. In some areas, land is scarce, and so we just have a natural increase in the price of real estate. And then when the interest rates rise to hedge against inflation, I think it can tamper down this increase in prices, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be doing much at this point.
Real quick question before we get on to Nick and Tim. Have you started to see any type of tail off as far as home prices in your neck of the woods?
No, the prices haven't tailed off. The refinance activity it's come to a complete standstill.
10-4. Tim, what's your take on this?
Well, I completely agree that it is a chicken and egg question. I mean, when you describe the definition of inflation as the cost of goods and services going up, the inverse definition is that the cash is buying you less, right? And so you've got a lot of different factors all happening at the same time. Infinite money printing and inflation, increase in interest rates, and really the Fed is trying to play Jenga with the entire market, hoping the whole thing doesn't come down all at once. But I just wonder which block gets removed at the right time that sets us down that path. But I don't know. The whole idea that it's just the housing market driving it independently and everything else is following it. I mean, we could have a fun debate over a glass of whiskey and talk about that one all night long.
Nick, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the hot markets are still the hot markets, right? Florida, Texas, major relocation destinations are still in high demand. The leading indicator in all this is obviously just days on market, right? So if you're in your market, check the MLS, make sure you're staying up to date on days on market. See if that's starting to creep up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 days on market. That'll kind of be the leading indicator. But for our market, we're still super hot. I do talk to some other agents in some other parts of the country that are starting to cool down a little bit, and it's mostly buyer fatigue in the first-time home buyer price point. But in our market here in Florida, we're still red hot.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Mr. Tony Barbarino, what is your take on this?
There are so many variables at play here. In addition to what Nick said about buyer fatigue, that's definitely going to play into this. Like Mark said about supply and demand, even Tim alluded to that. I think what people need to do is worry less about what they hear about predictions, because if anyone predicted anything, they'd be winning the lottery every day. I mean, we can make some educated guesses, but I have to agree with what the other co-host said. In general, buyer fatigue, some people now can't afford a house because the interest rates changed. There's not enough inventory on the market. However, that said, we have to put some of this information in proper perspective. As I mentioned the last time we spoke on our show about data and questioning what's behind that, because things can be made to look scary or great depending on how you want to serve it to the public. Point being is that when these buyers want to buy a house and they hear all this stuff, they have to understand that there's always somebody buying and selling constantly. It's not like everything is grind to a halt. It's just that these sellers, apparently in our market around here and probably some other states, there's a slowly growing amount of homes for sale, the secondary market. The new home construction is probably a little more choked because they're really crushed on their supplies and expenses, but there's almost always somebody buying and selling a house somewhere. So my suggestion, just to kind of put a cherry on top of this moment, the buyers should not let fatigue get in their way, because that's usually when you miss the best deals. You have to be prepared, stay vigilant, use whatever apps or websites you do to alert you about a home. It's just that the buyers have to do something they didn't normally have to do, was be quick, have a good agent, an agent who's actually being proactive. And those are the people that you hear about getting the deal because buyers are well prepared. They don't let psychological fatigue get them, because it's not an emotional thing really when you're hunting. It's only when you get into the deal it gets emotional, and having an agent that's very diligent. So if they were to focus on that and worry less about the grief or the possible predictions, they probably have a little bit better chance of success of finding a home they love and could afford. I know that sounds very dreamy, but that's how it works.
Sure. Tim, it's an interesting concept though, right? Like that study, when I saw it, there is this variable, there is that factor there, the actual home price appreciation, the whole supply. It's really, it looks like it is pulling up some inflation in a lot of different segments, right? Especially in building materials and things like that. But obviously oil's so involved here, inflation in general, shortage of homes. It's quite interesting.
Well, if you take the idea of cheap money, cheap lending over the course of the last 6, 7, 10 years, I mean, the first house I got a loan on when I bought my first home was 6%, and we were glad to have it. And here 6%'s back, and people are freaking out, and it's having to knock them down a few notches on what kind of home they could afford. And I do have some clients currently that are open in the market and as buyers. And here in the last couple of weeks, we've looked at a few houses that have literally been what you would consider stale at 7 days on the market. That's crazy that 7 days is considered stale. And we can even go in and negotiate with the sellers and not have to get crazy because there's no bidding war. However, the irony is we're dealing with agents that don't know anything but a crazy market. So they're like, well, why aren't you putting an over offer? And I'm like, but you don't have any other offers. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's going on. But I really think it comes back to cheap money having built up this demand and people trying to take advantage of it. Now they're kind of having that candy pulled back away from them, and they're reaching, and it's going to ebb and flow here for the next 6 months. We'll see what happens.
That leads me into my next question. I'm going to leave this open on the forum here. So everybody's asking, when are we going to go ahead and see a break in the pace that we're on right now? When are we going to see some type of level off? Mark, do you have any kind of gut feelings, indicators that you guys are looking at?
Well, it's going to have to be a combination of affordability and inventory working in relation. The median priced home here is extremely expensive, and the cost of that home has gone up by 20% over the past 3-4 weeks. The Fed has to act how they have to act to combat inflation, and that's going to be rising prices. So what I forecast for my area here is that home sellers are going to recognize that this might be the top, and so inventory might start to increase. Mm-hmm. But as the Feds continue to raise the rate, the affordability doesn't change at all.
Understood. Nick, what's your take? When are you feeling like we're going to have some type of level off in the country?
No crystal ball. This is not financial advice, right? Put that in disclaimer, put that in asterisks in the notes and everything. But I do think we're in a situation right now where over the summer, if not into fall, right? So we're looking at, if you know anybody that's got a crypto portfolio, go give them a hug. They're hurting. Same thing with stocks, right? So like you have people that are losing ridiculous amounts of money right now and are super scared and are going to retract. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is I think this is going to be a false top. I think they're going to keep raising the rates till about the end of the year, and not necessarily stop the economy, but definitely slow things down, and then print some more money and bring things back to where it was and still be ripping hard in 2023. So I feel like there's going to be an ebb and a flow coming back. I feel like probably another 0.5% interest is in the cards from now to the end of the year. But I do think they'll make some adjustments after that.
Tim, yesterday was a tough day in the market. A lot of people lost a lot of money. What say you? You're dealing with folks from a different financial side of the house. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Nick's not wrong. Whenever it comes to the crypto people, give them a hug. But frankly, you in crypto and other stocks and type things, you lose when you sell. If you hold, the question is how long do you have to hold? Crypto tends to have a lot quicker rebound, but where the stock market is, it has a slower rebound. There are experts who do believe that there'll be one more run back up and a blow off top before we have an ultimate massive downtrend. That could be later this year. It could be in the next year. There's others that think we'll continue up just because of the natural state of things. I personally lean towards the first of those two, that something's going to happen crazy. It's gonna feel chaotic, but that's where we come in to make sure people know they've got options to protect themselves from total loss. They can index it, they can protect it, and they don't have to lose it.
How can people get in touch with you guys at Patriot Wealth Nation?
Yeah, you can email me at patriotwealthnation@protonmail.com.
Okay, very good. Something's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be here to go ahead and share our opinion and hopefully get ahead of it for each and every single one of you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on to the next segment. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of homeowners are getting insurance non-renewal letters. Let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Ride bikes right on the sidewalk right here, and just good memories. And I love my house, I do.
Dave Lefkowitz has lived under this roof in his Wellington home for more than 2 decades.
I love living here. I've been here for 22 years. I raised my kids here. It's a wonderful neighborhood.
But this roof is likely the reason his insurance company dropped him this year, even though it's in great condition and he's never filed an insurance claim.
This is just another straw that's thrown on my back. There is just so many additional costs right now.
The news came in a letter.
Taking this action to reduce the overall exposure level to related catastrophic loss.
It didn't exactly say his roof was the problem, but Lefkowitz's insurance agent told him because it's more than 20 years old, replace it if he wants to get on with another insurance company. Over the past year, more than 150,000 Florida homeowners have received similar non-renewal letters. Insurance agents like Lee Wigglesworth are busy in the Palm Beaches and Treasure Coast, and roofs seem to be the big problem.
When roofs at a certain age are getting replaced by the neighborhood, they're closing zip codes, closing counties. They're saying, hey, we're not going to do any roofs 12 years or older.
It's leaving homeowners facing tough decisions with little options.
So what can you do to lower your premium right now? You can still call around to other companies and try to get a lower rate. If you can afford it, install impact windows or at least some sort of hurricane shutters for your windows. But you really need to talk to your insurance company about your roof sooner rather than later.
And Wigglesworth says do that through an agent.
They can call the underwriter, they can speak reason. We've been able to, it's not a common thing, but we've been able to overturn non-renewals. We've been able to show either a roof's been replaced or a roof's been repaired.
Because we are inching closer to hurricane season when having insurance is peace of mind.
And I'm really glad that you're bringing attention to this. I hope the right people see this. I hope the legislators, I hope the government officials see this, and something is really done because consumers need additional protection.
To protect them from an insurance storm that hopefully won't price them out of paradise.
Nick, you're in the Tampa market. You're right in Florida. You have some experience with insurance going up. Did you see the bill for him to go ahead and replace that roof that said
$100,000. Yeah, those barrel tile roofs are super expensive. Traditionally, those were supposed to be lifetime roofs, and insurance companies never treated them as such, even though homeowners purchased them at a premium at the time, 70s, 80s, and thought that was going to be the case. The whole insurance thing of people getting dropped right now is new, but this idea of insurance companies balking, especially during the sale of a home, is not new, right? Homes, when you buy when you buy a roof, it's typically 15, 18, 20, 25-year shingles, and people think it lasts that long. We saw insurance companies start about 2 or 3 years ago really balking at anything over 13, 14 years old. If you were going to buy a house and that roof was inching up to 15 years old, you better have a solid 4-point. You better have a secondary appraiser go out there, a roofer, and certify the actual roof, because it was a problem for insurance to get that balance. So it's terrible, but it's not surprising that they're doing this at mass scale. But yeah, it's been a problem for a while.
Paul, are you seeing some of the same things in North Carolina by chance?
So I have not. I've not seen anything as far as insurance companies putting that strain on us, on the public here. But I will say, because both of you guys are in Florida, I have a good friend in Boca Raton, and he just paid off his house. And the reason he paid off his house is because hurricane insurance has jumped up so much. And from what he was telling me, if you pay off your house, you don't have to buy hurricane insurance. And so he just retired. He was a pilot. And he's like, I either have to move or I'm going to have to pay off my house and stay here because I'm not going to be able to afford it. That's how ridiculous it has gotten.
Very interesting. Hey, Mark, so the actual shingle that we saw in that news clip is supposed to be a lifetime type shingle, right? What are your take here on this whole matter, and tell us a little bit about that shingle versus some of the other petroleum-based stuff?
Well, clearly a tile shingle like that should be a lifetime type shingle. It's pretty robust. I don't see how, I know those hurricanes blow through there pretty strong, but I don't see how that's going to blow your roof off, as opposed to a composition shingle roof material. And when you look at building costs, yes, those do cost a lot more. That type of a roof is going to cost more. $108,000 to replace it is a little bit excessive, but this is the world we live in now. Everything costs more money. But around the insurance issue, we are in California seeing transactions fall apart because homeowners are not willing to pay that high premium for homeowners insurance. And we have issues here with fire. And when we do have burn areas that get rained on, then we have mudslides. And we also have high tides, which you probably have on that side of the U.S. So it seems like your zip code can be excluded by some insurers, regardless of where you live. You don't want to live in the foothills because it's prone to fire. You don't want to live down at the beach because it's prone to flood. And to me, it just seems like these insurance companies are just trying to find a way to minimize having to make these huge payouts, because a couple of the last fires were in some very high priced areas. They ripped through Los Angeles down to the beach in Malibu, through some very expensive properties. One of the things that I've seen in my area, we've had a number of fires in our area in Orange County over the years, is that people are underinsured. So when they do experience an event like this, so an appraiser will be called out to go and do a re-inspection on any of these loans that are in process. So the lender wants to see what's going on with our asset. What's it look like now? Well, what it looks like is scorched earth with slabs and fireplaces. That's all that remains. So over the years, the only people that you see rebuilding are the people that were insured properly, or the people that have the money to make up the difference.
Understood. Tony, what's your take on this?
Well, yeah, Mark was already stepping into a topic that I am all too familiar with. We have this fire hardening disclosure where nowadays in our natural hazard reports, it's disclosed if a property is in the high or very high fire zone, and that, of course, is going to affect insurance, because lenders who are lending, or even all cash buyers who want to protect their asset, you're going to have to start paying a little more for fire. And Now, depending on where you are in the state or even the country, normally when you're in a high fire zone, you have a fire marshal supposed to come out, evaluate your property, make the notes on what changes you have to make to reduce your dangers if there's a fire in the area, and get clearances so the buyer can say, okay, shoo, that's done, but the insurance company still wants their money. So when people sometimes take the emotional component out and think it through, I know the insurance companies want to make money, but we also have to understand the insurance company wants to make money. They want to minimize their payout, but I'm sure they don't want you to die like in a hurricane or a fire. So when you pull the emotions out for a second, I'm not trying to tell people they have to spend the money, but think about it. In California, with fire hardening, you're darn tootin', I'll spend what I got to spend to protect my assets and my family. And when things burn down to ash, that you hope the insurance company is going to give you enough money to get it all back. Because remember, cheap is expensive. So if you go too cheap or too minimal on your insurance, and if something terrible happens, you may wind up with just a slab in a fireplace and nothing else. So I think for Florida, much like what California is going through, at first with our fire and their flooding, everybody goes, oh, I don't want to spend all that money. But if you don't, imagine what the cost is in terms of life and property, or who knows what else, if you don't do it. So unfortunately, we're probably going to have to get used to it, like we're getting used to high gas prices and higher taxes, and we get, I guess, normalized or comfortable with what we have to pay. I mean, what are our other options?
Nick, FEMA started their 2.0, I believe they call it, like their flood map 2.0, which now is having effects all across the United States on people that never had to have flood insurance now have to in some different parts. I know you've seen an increase in the flood side. Go ahead and tell us that.
I had it. My personal house. I've been here 9 years, and this is the first year I've had flood. And it happened to me. It was interesting. It happened during a refinance. So a lot of other people were getting, letters in the mail from their insurance company. I was going through the refinance process and ended up being $250 more a month than my refinance was going to be, right? Just because of flood insurance. So yeah, it's been really interesting in Florida. There's different pockets around here in Tampa Bay that are much more prone. But right now, the V2, one of the main things is the cost to rebuild. So that really wasn't in the equation before, where now the higher price homes are getting taken into consideration on the rebuild, where before it was just where you lie and almost not necessarily as strict on the processes of it.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, so being proactive and making sure that you call an appraiser, maybe a home inspector, have them come out and kind of give a little bit of a recertification on some of the amenities of your home, so you can issue that back to the insurance company. Say, hey guys, I'm still good, would be a smart thing to do, right?
100%. Yep.
All right. So what does it feel like to go ahead and purchase a home in 2022? We've got a nice little skit from Holderness, family vlogs. We're big fans from the newsroom of those folks, but this is supposedly what it feels like to them.
Oh, hey you. Hey, Kim. Can you believe it? It's been almost a year since I've seen you. Has it? Yeah, we didn't want to bid $10,000 over asking for a house we hadn't even had a chance to see. So we thought we'd give it a year and let the market cool off. Cool off? I figured a year later we'd have a better chance of getting something that, I don't know, we could see in person. Call me crazy. You're crazy. What? It's the wild, wild west out there, man. Well, you must be raking in a lot of sales. Hold on. Hello? But we offered $100,000 over asking. Is everything okay? It's my buyers. They can't catch a break. First timers, huh? Why are you laughing? First time home buyers. You're hilarious. I mean, I'm sure they're eager to get a house too. You actually think there are starter homes in this market? Are there not? You're cute. How about this? Whoa. That's a shed. Yup. Next to a dumpster. Yep. At an interstate rest area. Nice, huh? This went for $150,000 over asking, and they waived the inspection, so we're not even sure if this thing has a floor. Well, it sounds like your buyers dodged a bullet there. Are you kidding? They're devastated. This is the 86th house they've bid on. This is a real problem. I know. Who is buying all of these places? Oh, a pocket listing. A pocket what? People want to sell their house, but they want it to be a secret. So they don't tell people it's for sale. No, and it'll just sell. It's magic. And it's gone, of course. Let me get this straight. You just think happy thoughts and your house sells. Basically. So why did you want to meet? Well, we're looking for a house with a basement, to give the kids a place to hang out. What about this one? Are you gonna show me? No, just tell me fast. Do you want it? Where is it? Kim, you can't be so indecisive. Do you want it or not? You haven't shown me a picture or told me anything about it. How can I make a decision? And it's gone. We really can't drag our feet like that. Basements are so hard to find around here. You know what? Let's check in a few months and maybe things will be different. Yeah, I'm sure the prices will just magically drop and we'll have a ton of options for you. I mean, in a few months, I'm sure the market will correct itself. Sure. Okay, great. You want to grab a drink? Coffee? Stronger. Kilo? More. Got some absinthe that I got in college and I've been saving it for it. Sounds like you need it. Hey friends, I know we did a video like this last year about the crazy real estate prices. I thought it would correct. No. If you are looking for a house right now, bless you. Bless you, because the people, what they are offering, like puppies and boats, and it is crazy out there, you guys. I'm thinking of you. We are staying here. Shout out to realtors who are probably losing their mind right now, and to people looking for normal priced houses. Who is buying the houses? Who is actually buying the houses? What? And do we think it'll correct, right? It'll go down, right? It'll go back down, right? No? It's my buyers. They can't catch a break.
All right. I love the Holderness family vlogs. Absolutely hilarious. But I think they kind of sum it up a little bit, right? There's speed to the market and things are flying off the shelves fast and we have to be competitive. Nick, start us off here. What's your takeaway on this emotional Holderness family vlog?
We're in the newsroom, so I think it's appropriate. Did you know that the husband of that Holderness family, he was a news anchor?
Oh, really?
Like he left the news in order to do family vlogs, and that's how they start on social media. But he was in the news before, which I think is fitting.
Yeah,
for us.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of agents can self-identify with that, because that's really what's going on right now. And it's funny because I said the same thing like leading into this housing market. So 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when SUVs and pickup trucks started creeping over the $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 price point, I'm looking at everybody. I'm all my friends. I'm like, who's buying this? Who's buying a $65,000 pickup truck with a W-2? Now, if you're a business owner and you got to hide some cash and end of the year, you had a great year, like fine. But it kind of started with all that. These new normals just keep getting more and more and more. And it's kind of like that in the real estate market right now. It's like, who's buying this house? The locals are looking and laughing when they hear how much these houses are selling for, and they're going, who's buying this? This doesn't make any sense.
Paul, what are your thoughts here?
I love it. I followed them during COVID, and kept me smiling through. Oh, I didn't know that he was an anchor, Nick, and it explains why they're so good together. I think she hit a lot of points here. That the market is still strong, and a lot of people, we do this every day. So this is our profession, but a lot of people don't do this every day. So they don't realize that now that everything's going back to normal, that the market is still strong. And she hits another point. Realtors, you guys must be making a lot of money, right? And the woman just shakes her head. Everyone thinks that realtors are just bringing in the cash in this market. And we're not. It's one house to one buyer, and it's very challenging, which goes to her next skit where it says pocket listings. And that is a strategy I myself use and other real estate agents use, to where the house is listed and it's not listed on the open market. They have a buyer or we have a buyer, and we bring them to the table. Sight unseen sales, very popular. That was really funny. Do you want the house or not? We've got to put an offer now. In North Carolina, we have a huge thing with due diligence. You got to have a strong due diligence going in, and the strong drink for real estate agents. I think alcohol sales has gone up for us during this market.
Yeah, she
I
said
know it
half
has
of
for me.
Tony, people are just waiving contingencies and inspections and all this. I mean, what does a typical winning offer look like these days?
Well, funny you should ask me specifically, because in about 3 or 4 hours, a listing I had last week that was in the lower 700,000s went on the market around 9 a.m. and in 5 hours I had a all cash offer, all contingencies removed except an inspection for only 5 days, 10-day escrow close, and it was the nicest, smoothest thing possible. Now, just to educate really quick for buyers, I mentioned earlier, don't get fatigued. Well, sometimes you don't know why some of these things happen. So in this case, it was a business owner who owned several businesses, sold one of his businesses off. And like Nick said, business owners usually know how to, quote, legally hide money by moving it someplace else. In this case, they were snapping up 2 or 3 homes in the area, just saying, oh, 728,000, I'll give you 850. When it's fixed up, that's about what it's worth, and we'll just give you that. And the seller said, done, easy peasy. And of course, 17 phone calls later of people going, oh, come on. Like in that clip you did, I had to field those, which I do, and I say, I'm so sorry. So yeah, sometimes a business will move their money from a sold business or other windfalls of cash into these homes, which usually outperforms the other regular buyers and families with loans. It's not that there's an infinite amount of those, but sometimes that's what happens. And in my specific example, that is what happened. Somebody with all that cash had to move it, otherwise they pay a bunch of taxes. So the other buyers I'm working with, we have to sit down with them, as any good real estate agent out there knows, like Nick, for example, and I'm sure Tim deals with some of these people too. We have to do the best we can to conscientiously and carefully educate the buyer about the contingencies, what are these consequences that we're aware of, and what happens if you remove them in advance when you go to submit an offer, so that your buyer doesn't wind up getting into some kind of trouble.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mr. Tony. Tim, that was hilarious. So what does a winning offer look like in your neck of the woods?
Well, the interesting thing is if you're inside kind of the Beltway and in the city, you're still going to be competing. You're still going to be, potentially up against 15 to 20 offers in a weekend on a well-priced home that's desirable. And that can be anywhere between, under 400,000 basically. But what I am learning is that when you get into the rural parts, even on fantastic houses with land, even though those houses are up 50, 60% over the last few years, that they're softening, that they are on market, through a weekend without an offer. And so I think, for people who are willing to migrate, at least in our area, they might be able to get not a smoking hot deal by any means, but they may not have to give up an arm and a leg to make the deal happen.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Tim. Nick, appraised values of homes are going up, and so are your property taxes, right? So what can families go ahead and do if all of a sudden they see a big increase? I've got a little bit of a news clip here that's kind of breaking it down. I'm interested to see what it is.
Everyone, I'm Josh Benson. And I'm Jennifer Lee. Thank you for joining us. The recent surge in Tampa Bay real estate values could cause sticker shock when residents get their property tax notices late this summer. That's right. News Channel 8's Annie Mapp is live in the Tampa News Center. Annie, local property appraisers are saying this will be a record year, right?
I spoke to Hillsborough County property appraiser Bob Enriquez. He says the increase is likely to exceed any in the past decade. He shares this is an important time for people to start showing up to let local leaders know how they feel.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% increase overall. That's overall property value in Hillsborough County.
But as property values climb, how much will it really cost you? Turns out that new home buyers may feel it the most.
If you have a homesteaded property, your taxable value can't go up more than 3%, which with inflation, it'll be 3% this year. Where you really would feel it is if you are a new home buyer, if you have new construction.
But homeowners won't be the only ones to feel the pinch. If you rent, the increases could also impact what you pay every month.
There are a lot of investors that then will pass through, they'll be hit with the full 20%, most likely, and then they will pass that through to their renters. So they're going to be negatively affected as well.
So what can you do about all this? Well, there's not much you can do about rates that are already set. But going forward, Enriquez says the best way is to get involved when city or county leaders are making decisions about your tax dollars.
Encourage them to be engaged this year as those millage rates are being set by the taxing authorities, because ultimately that's really the only way that they can help to at least lessen that burden a little bit this year.
If you think there is an error when you do receive your notice, the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's Office says they are available to help. Live in the
Okay. Mark, historically, every single time that I look at my tax appraised value, it is substantially different than my actual appraised value of my home. Can you break that down for me? Why is there such a big difference?
Well, every state and jurisdiction has different ways of going about property taxation. And apparently in a lot of states, they reassess. They're especially keen to reassess when property values are increasing significantly, not as much so when property values decline, and to lower your tax burden, your property taxes.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it's interesting, but the difference between your assessed value and your current appraised value is going to be wildly different, especially in the year 2022, because of the insane amount of appreciation that you have experienced in your area. But when they ask, what is it what can we do? Who can we go to? They suggest going to the county appraiser. Yes, that's a place to start and have them maybe take another look at it. You can, in many areas, you can supply comparables. And if you want to go to the extreme, hire your own appraiser and bring that to the tax collector and say, look, this is what we've got. We would like to dispute our taxes.
So what kind of justification do I have to give them? And what are Tim, where do I even start with this? Let's say I go ahead and get this. I just have an increase in my taxes, and what is the talking points? Where do I go? Where do I even start?
Well, what's interesting is I've got a lot of people right now that I've helped buy home in the last year or so, and some people who were just thinking about selling, they never end up buying or selling. They're in their original home, that are reaching out to me just going, can you help me? Is there anything you can do to pull comps? And before I even look at what the home value is, I just say, hey, just a heads up. On average, homes have gone up about 30%. And when they send me their tax form, I'm probably within 1 or 2%, plus or minus that, based on their house and their location. And so then what they're asking me to do is find comps to go help them prove to the county that their house isn't actually worth this. And the problem is the most recent sales, especially since the start of this year, don't support that, right? And so it's a very tough conversation to have. Normally in our area, you can contest the tax office for about 5 to 10% without much question and at least get it bumped down a little bit. But even locally, we're having people denied just on their online submission. And so even that alone is kind of an anomaly that isn't typical for our area. So the tried and true methods, I would say still try to implement them and see what you could do. But, right now people are getting pushback on that from the county.
Nick, that report was from your neck of the woods, out of the Tampa area. How much have you seen as far as the new tax bill prices from your neck of the woods?
Fun fact, Bob Henriquez was one of my football coaches in high school.
Oh, cool.
So me and him go way back, right? Exactly like Tim said. So there's parts of Tampa that appreciate 30% year over year, no matter what, right? South Tampa in particular, it's always been a hot zone, right? So we pretty much know that that's the case. It's all of these outlying areas, and Tampa is pretty much comprised of 3 major counties: Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco. And most people who sell in Hillsborough will move to Pasco because the taxes are cheaper. But I do have friends that live in Pasco that are going, hey, we're supposed to be out here and not paying as much taxes, and now we're getting affected by this. So we don't really know what to do. And like Tim said, you can contest it, but I personally have never had anybody contest and win. So I don't know where that, if Tim knows the 5% leeway or whatever, but I don't know anybody who's personally done that. So I think right now we're just kind of in the, I don't want to say shaft, but not much can be done with this market.
Well, I think if you don't even attempt to try,
Yeah, sure,
nothing is going to happen. So, Tim, Mark, what is the process for homeowners that are watching us right now? They receive the tax bill. What are the next steps that they should do, and who should they go talk to see if they can get some type of adjustment?
Well, I think if you go to Home Depot, they sell pitchforks, and maybe you can find a torch section, like a tiki torch, and you just get, in groups, and you go down to the tax office. I mean, no, you shouldn't take it lying down. Don't get me wrong. But I think the measures of the passive, I'll just submit it and see what happens. We're beyond that. And I really don't see, without a true, force of people coming in and truly being vocal about this, I just don't see where they get any relief from this in the next few years, because we're going to have 2022 happen, and that's going to affect the tax season for next year. And then if there is any kind of market correction, it's going to take an additional year after that for them to feel any reprieve from that. So I don't think, unless there's, some serious, communal action from the bottom up, that anything can be done.
Yeah.
Most county assessor websites will have some type of a form that you can print out and follow the directions on how to do it. And then you consult with a local realtor or someone in the real estate space and see if they can find you any comparables. In the current market, good luck with that. But, Tim mentions an uprising amongst the people. California in the 70s had just exactly that. And they passed Proposition 13, which has made taxes very affordable in relation to the prices of homes here. So properties are taxed at 1.1% of their sales price, and then the annual increase is capped. So, you might be in a house that you've been in for 20 years, like I am, that's assessed at 1/3 of the true value. So that's a reverse dichotomy there, where, most other places don't have anything like Proposition 13. So you need to stay up on top of it and appeal and appeal and appeal. But in the current market, I'd be careful about what you ask for, because if you ask them to relook at your home, they might actually find out that it's worth more than they assessed you on and bump it up even more.
There's the catch-22.
Yes.
So husband and wife need to flip a coin, Mark, before they go down this road?
Well, I mean, take a look at what's going on in your neighborhood and see what the prices are, and look at your tax bill and go, well, I don't think we should fight this one.
Very interesting. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Appreciate you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a touchy kind of a topic to go ahead and close the rest of the show. We're going to figure out how the political climate affects the real estate market, kindly and politely, okay, without getting into the mix here. But I'm going to bring in Mr. Tim Parnell and Paul. Gentlemen, politics, they definitely do affect policy and change. And then there goes the rest of the story in a lot of different sectors, to include the housing market. So all of the uncertainty and volatility in the world has kept even people, like real estate investors, on their toes for the past couple of years. We've had a tumultuous 2020 election where real estate related policies like Fair Housing Act and investor friendly tax cuts kind of came back under the microscope. So if you are investing in a certain area or moving to a certain area, is it wise to go ahead and understand some of the policies from our government or local bodies and things like that, and do some due diligence in this regard? Paul, why don't you kick us off here?
Yes, I think it is, because you're going to be living there, and depending on what the client wants, the person living there should also depend on where they're going. This is a touchy subject. I'll be honest with you. I am a capitalist to the extent of believing that people should be able to have the right to have ownership of free land, buying and selling land. And with that said, I think people should really see where they're going and see what the local bureaucracy is in that area. Inflation is an issue. taxes are an issue. And I'll tell you what the topic you just talked about. I know realtors here who couldn't get their clients into the house of their price point. So they started looking at lower taxes with a higher price point to get them in. Now, when those taxes go up, what's going to happen?
Yep. It's going to adjust. Now their monthly mortgage payment is going to reflect the change.
Exactly.
Sure.
And are they going to be able to stay in that house? I don't know. And are we doing a disservice as a real estate agent to them? As far as the politics go, I think everyone should be aware of the board, the county, and who is running for what, and what they stand behind and what they're proven to stand behind, because it can affect your cost of living.
Yep, for sure. Tim, there's a lot of folks that are moving to places like Texas, places like Florida. They're mass exiting California, New York, New Jersey. A lot of the political components are a factor here.
Absolutely.
What say you?
I say we don't talk about politics enough, and that's my opinion. I think if we actually did talk more about it and we're just open about it with both sides of things, then we'd probably be able to accomplish a little bit more. But the interesting thing about politics is, 100% it affects real estate in the market and where people decide they want to live, because your political leanings will affect the community you choose to be a part of. And so if you choose to be a part of a particular community, then it's your diligence that you should put into place to make sure that that community you're choosing is actually reflecting your own values. And so, for example, I've had plenty of calls from Californians that are looking to come to the North Texas area, and they'll reach out to me because they know that I represent Fort Worth. I don't really go into Dallas. That's just not my area. And Texas is a big place. So to go from Fort Worth to Dallas, I mean, we're talking 45-minute drive to get across town to get over there. But I'll ask them, like, do you know where you want to live between the two big cities? Do you want to do Fort Worth or do you want to do Dallas? And when they give me their answer, I ask them why. And if they say, this is the really interesting part. When they say Dallas, it's because that's what they're familiar with. It's not because they visited here. But every Californian that I have talked to that wants to live on the Fort Worth side of town actually visited Dallas and Fort Worth and decided they wanted to live on Fort Worth side of town. And when I asked them, not my opinion, but them, why, they thought it felt more laid back, a little bit more conservative, and more of what they were looking for, end quote. And so that to me is a very interesting thing, because truly the government of the Dallas side of town is a Democratic, Democrat run government, and on the Fort Worth side of town is a conservative run government, Republican. And you can definitely sense that, even though Democrats and Republicans live on both sides of the cities, it just, you feel it in the politics and, just the aura of the environment. And so, I think you absolutely have to make that choice for yourself. And if you're ignoring that, then, that's an unfortunate thing. You may well regret it if you don't look into it.
So when I'm trying to identify a place to go live, if I'm relocating, where should I go to identify what some of the local policies are? Or should I touch base with my real estate agent and see if they're educated and know? Mark, what are your thoughts here? If you're relocating, how do you find all of these things out that affect the cost of my living?
Most folks that are moving out of high cost of living areas are primarily looking at the cost of the home. And I think that they should dig a little bit deeper into everything. We spoke about the insurance earlier. Am I going to be in a flood zone area? It's great. I'm going to move out to Florida and have no state income tax, but I'm going to have to, replace my roof at $108,000. So there wipes out a lot of tax savings. People are moving from state to state based on cost of living, I think. But when we go back to how does federal policy impact the real estate market, the federal government created branches or entities within them like HUD and FHA that encourage homeownership, and different administrations have granted investors tax incentives and pulled back on them. And during COVID, we've had eviction moratoriums. So big investors weren't hurt as badly by that policy, but small investors, I know people that own a couple little apartment buildings, and they can't withstand, 6 months, a year and a half of not receiving rent on their properties. So state policy is what it is, but when we talk about federal policy encouraging homeownership and giving breaks to investors, we have to also look at, how do these things affect not only the large institutional investors, but the small guy?
Yep, absolutely. Mark, how can people get in touch with you for your appraisal services and all of your teachings?
Oh, I'm out here in California. You can reach me by email. I'm Mark, M-A-R-K, at cmpappraisal.com. That's my website. And I have another one for teaching on solar. I do appraisesolar.com. I teach appraisers and realtors how to value solar.
Outstanding. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Paul, I think it is smart to go ahead and keep a very close eye on what's happening politically, and also the politics that are driving maybe some school board decisions if you go ahead and have children, right? So maybe moving to a certain area might be okay, but also folks should be looking at what kind of school policies are going on. I see a big polar divide in how parents are agreeing or disagreeing with some of the school policies. So
they are.
Yeah.
One of my questions when I interview a new buyer is, are school zones important to you? And what are they?
Yep, most definitely. Paul, how can people get in touch with you if they're moving to the Triad area of North Carolina?
My number is 336-963-3684, or you can see any of my social media sites at Paul NC Realtor.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. We appreciate you. Tim, it's always tough for people. Most folks say, don't talk politics, but how can you even deny what you have to go ahead and live, right? We're ruled by all of these political thoughts, leaders, and policies and everything else. So I feel that the more educated we are in life on all topics that positively or negatively affects us, so that we can make good, sound decisions, is important. What say you?
Jake, that is why I love you, sir. That's what I say. But I completely agree, because look, I mean, if you aren't asking the right questions, and someone, had pointed out, is your realtor the person to ask about these questions? And I would say that, well, your realtor may not know. I mean, there's a lot of brand new agents out there that may not have a beat on the market, or, what areas are what. But at the same time, you need to be prepared for factual information, not them giving you their opinion that should sway you, because that's called steering, right? I mean, don't live over there, live over here. This is what you want. But it's different for an agent to come in and ask you what you're looking for and say, well, this has that, right? But don't live over there. Like that's your agent shouldn't be doing that. So just know that, I mean, you're better off being your own advocate, doing your own diligence, versus leaning on what may be a stranger that you don't know and what their values are, and whether or not you're in alignment with that agent as a person. So
Yep. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Tim. We appreciate you and all of your folks over at Patriot Wealth Nation. Tony, you're a man that's kind of in the know down there in Southern California. How can people get in touch with you if they're wanting to go ahead and wade through these tumultuous waters?
Well, they can start by going to my website, of course, where I have everything under Tony Barbarino, TonyBarbarino. They can have all my contact information right there. Happy to reach out and help. See what we can do.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Tony. We appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Yep. That's a hot topic, Mr. Nick. It's a hot topic. But do you feel that people should be in the know before they go?
Yeah, I do like what Tim said, though. We have to make sure, especially out of town relocation, that we're not steering anybody. But that's part of the application or interview process, right? You're gathering information and you're just showcasing your expertise, and that is definitely important. And honestly, that's one of the things that separates a seasoned / pro real estate agent with somebody who's brand new, who doesn't necessarily know the market as well, right? So you should be able to showcase your knowledge in that respect, but we definitely don't want to say anything like, you can't live here, go live over there, anything like that. So
Understood. Nick, how can people get in touch with us?
Head on over to runation.com.
Yeah,
I think it's a great place to be, right? We got a lot of cool other cool shows. If you like this one, you'll probably like a lot of the other shows that we have on the platform, and we're just getting started. We're literally just building this up now. Again, we're looking for contributors, like-minded individuals in the real estate industry who want to keep their pulse on what's going on. And we are providing as much content as possible around the news, marketing, real estate interviews with top producers. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, make sure you head on over there, runation.com. It's a great place.
runation.com. Yeah, and we kick out all of the show notes from the newsroom, ladies and gentlemen. So if you enter your information, we'll make sure you guys are updated on things that are going on.
It's only getting better every day. Yep.
Back channel information. It's always good. Well, outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a wrap for Real Estate America's News today. And drop us some comments. Go ahead and hit the like. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that bell and subscribe. Tell your friends and your family and all your loved ones about it, because we bring value consistently. So, ladies and gentlemen, tune into us every single Tuesday and Thursday at high noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And we'll be streaming live. You can always catch the replay at reunation.com at Real Estate America's Newsroom. Thank you, Mr. Nick, for co-hosting today. You have a blessed rest of your day, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, God bless each and every single one of you and your family. Cheers and charge hard. Until next time.